Is China a threat? That is the question that is often asked and just as often inconclusively answered by analysts and decision makers in the West. Since the 1990s, China has been resurgent and has risen to become, once again, the global power that it has been for most of human history. As the years to come shape up to resemble an Asian century, if not an exclusively Chinese one, it's important to understand and answer this question: is China a threat? For now, as part one of this three-part series, let's take a look at the facts. What does China want? That is, what are its national and international ambitions, and how does it plan to achieve them? In 2018, Xi Jinping spoke to the Central Foreign Policy Work Conference and said that a core component of his ideology of social diplomacy is to, and I quote directly, lead the reform of the global governance system. But what does that mean? What lies at the heart of this desire to reform the global governance system is China's displeasure with the fact that after World War II, the global order was rebuilt almost entirely by the West. China views itself as the Middle Kingdom, meaning it believes itself to be the cultural, political, and economic center of the world. Therefore, a global order run by the West and one that can be interpreted as being beneficial only to the West is not something China can abide by. So, how do they intend to upset, that is to say, reform the world order? That is the most pertinent question, as since the pandemic, the unipolar world centered on the US that was left behind by the collapse of the USSR is now all but dissolved. India sees itself as being the leader of the global south. China competes directly and on even footing with the US. Europe is rebuilding its industrial and military infrastructure as US influence recedes. Russia is waging open war against Europe, not literally but figuratively, and the US seems to be withdrawing into itself. So where does this leave China? Well, it gives China an opportunity. Intelligence agencies across Europe and North America have reported that China seeks to influence the democratic process, often through targeted social media campaigns, which is now made easier thanks to AI, but also through traditional espionage, with Chinese missions acting as the coordination centers for these operations. Aside from actions such as these, China seizes whatever opportunities arise with an alarming expediency. Take the Red Sea crisis, for instance. China reached a deal with the Houthis that would see their ships spared from missile and drone attack. While the majority of the world deployed naval assets to the region to protect civilian shipping, Chinese warships remained conspicuously absent, with the US and India making up the majority of the deployment, and Chinese cargo ships were not targeting. Meanwhile, Chinese-made parts such as fuel cells were found in the wreckage of Houthi missiles and drones. But that is it for today. In the next video, we will take a detailed look at what China is doing to create its own separate and sometimes parallel world order. In the meantime, if you think China is a threat or if you think it's just a nation asserting itself, whatever it is, head down to the link down below to cast your vote. Remember, your voice matters.